What inspires us? Is it raindrops on roses or whispers on kittens? Wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings? Yes, these are a few of my favorite things, though it was not a wild goose or a wild goose chase this weekend. I looked at a bird flying above me, and I felt something. Do I admire its freedom or the strength of its wings? Sometimes it's hard to tell which I feel, inspiration or aspiration. The word used by the Romans for both is the same. So both our words inspire and aspire come from the Latin spirare, meaning breathe towards. I think of struggling up a mountain and breathing heavily, panting. I think of desire. Then there's spirit, from the same Latin root. Not all aspirations are the same. But people who can do things that I cannot do also inspire me. I am reading the memoirs of the tennis player Andre Agassi, who is both mixed up and ambivalent about his strong motivation to win in sports. He begins his book with a quote from Vincent van Gogh, who has clearly inspired him. And this is the quote: "One cannot always tell what it is that keeps us shut in, confines us, seems to bury us, but still one feels certain barriers, certain gates, certain walls. Is all this imagination, fantasy? I do not think so. Then one asks, my God, is it for long? Is it forever? Is it for eternity? Do you know what frees one from this captivity? It is very deep, serious affection. Being friends, being brothers, love. That is what opens the prison by supreme power, by some magic force." And Van Gogh wrote that in a letter to his brother. Andre Agassi is saying something about freedom after a long struggle. Meanwhile, I am inspired by my mother's struggle for health and life, though my feelings are also complex. I admire the resilience of refugees and the moral clarity of advocates struggling for justice. I appreciate the sincere and open-hearted. I am inspired by the beautiful. Inspiration can feed us, perhaps even comes from a holy place. But do I aspire? Per aspera ad astra is the Latin saying. According to myth, Icarus aspired to fly but flew too close to the sun, and his wings melted and he fell to his doom. Here is the image of Icarus painted by Matisse. And here is the image of Icarus painted by Bruegel the Elder in the 16th century. Regarding inspiration, I recall how artists are inspired by one another in collective conversation over centuries. Regarding this image, the poet William Carlos Williams wrote, "According to Bruegel, when Icarus fell, it was spring. A farmer was plowing his field. The whole pageantry of the year was awake, tingling, near the edge of the sea, concerned with itself, sweating in the sun that melted the wings' wax. Insignificantly, off the coast, there was a splash, quite unnoticed. This was Icarus drowning." After seeing this painting, Wystein Auden, the poet Auden, wrote of how the world seems to turn away from tragedy, intent on going about its usual business. In Bruegel's Icarus, for example, how everything turns away quite leisurely from the disaster. The plowman may have heard the splash, the forsaken cry, but for him it was not an important failure. The sun shone as it had to on the white legs disappearing into the green water, and the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to get to and sailed calmly on. For Auden, the painting embodied a universal human failure of youth fostered by his recent first-hand experiences in observing the atrocities of the Sino-Japanese War. With the work we do, I think we can relate. And yet, returning to the stars, Jalal ad-Din Rumi writes, "There are stars beyond the stars of this world, in which there is no risk of being burnt up or misfortune. Astral wanderers in other heavens besides the 7 honored heavens of this world, durable ones among the shining lights of God, not joined or separate from each other. Whoever's rising sign is from those stars, his soul burns and drives away the rejecting deniers who are stoned by flaming meteors. His anger isn't like the anger of a Mars-born person, turning upside down from having a dominating nature and then a dominated one. The victorious light of the saints is safe from defect and darkness because it is in between the 2 fingers of the light of God. Although God scatters that light upon all souls, only those who are fortunate to have held up their robes to receive it, and they have understood that scattering of light and have turned their faces from anything other than God. Whoever is without such a robe of love ends up without a share of that scattering of light." To end, perhaps not all human aspiration is motivated by illusion, but much is. Meanwhile, per aspera ad astra appears on the right side shoulder patch in Star Trek Enterprise on the newer uniform style shown in the series finale. In Star Trek The Next Generation, it is shown to be the motto of Starfleet. SpaceX has begun to use it in their Starship program. It is also the official motto of Kansas. So to return to the breath, thank you.